Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Yankees lose Game 1 of the best-of-3 series against the Boston Red Sox in the American League Wild Card Series. I was at this game. Very, very frustrating. Crushing loss. A lot to discuss. And look, this was the problem with the Yankees. And look, it's not over yet. Still 1 or 2 games to go. But with not winning the division, with not getting the 1 seed, with the Yankees losing via the tiebreaker to the Blue Jays, that had major ramifications. And on the one hand, look, you knew Garrett Crochet was going to be very difficult, and he was. Crochet ended up pitching a fantastic game. He gets the win. He went 7 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, no walks, and 11 strikeouts. He was sensational, but Max Fried was great. Didn't allow a run in 6 1/3 innings. 4 hits, no runs, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. But they lose the game. The bullpen, Luke Weaver specifically, cannot hold the lead in the 7th inning. There's a lot to discuss as far as that decision goes, as far as taking Fried out for Weaver. The Red Sox add on a run in the 9th off of Bednar, which was really huge, to make it 3-1. And then the Yankees had bases loaded, no outs against Chapman, and they were unable to score. Now, caveat there, they probably could have scored a run. If they really, really needed it, they could have maybe scored a run. But given the situation, you don't want to chance that lead runner being out. So either way, though, they don't get the job done. And there were major points in this game, key at-bats, and the Yankees failed to execute. So now, their backs are against the wall. They are looking at being on the brink of elimination. And, teams have really struggled in these best-of-3 game series after losing Game 1. Since it was instituted in 2022, I don't believe any team that lost Game 1 came back to win a series. In 2020, it happened, but it's not often. And the weird thing is there's a lot of road success in these series as well. Now, in this iteration so far, and as I'm recording this, the Dodgers are an out away from winning. It was a split as far as the National League home teams won and the American League road teams won. But, it's very frustrating. And by the way, the Dodgers have won, for what that's worth. But, I did not like you couldn't like the Crochet matchup, right? And whether it was the Tigers or the Red Sox, that was a little bit of a topic, as far as, schoolball, but Yankees don't match up well with the Red Sox. And so you look at the Yankee lineup here and, at the top, I guess want to say that the prediction I had was not entirely correct, but I was right about the fact that Paul Blackburn was going to be on the roster. But then looking back on it, and this is not me defending Austin Slater at all. Austin Slater did not deserve to be on this roster, but we're going to talk about this game. And there's many different conversations to be had here. There really, really are. I still think that he probably should have been on the roster, right? In a 3-game series, why do you need Paul Blackburn and Will Warren? So basically what happened was JC Escara on the roster, which I agree with. And they took off Slater, Luis Gil, who wasn't available, so I get that, and then Ryan Yarbrough, who I felt like that was going to happen. I felt like Yarbrough, his role was not much lately. When he was in there, he wasn't really too effective. So the lineup for this game, for what you had available to you, I don't have major issues with the starting lineup. I really don't. It was Goldschmidt, and it was basically exactly as I talked about in the preview episode. I think it was that exact same lineup. Goldschmidt, Judge, Bellinger, Stanton, Rosario at second, Grisham, Volpe, Wells, Caballero at third. Right? That was what it was. And look, it's not ideal. It's not. This Yankee lineup is a lot stronger. Now, the numbers may not bear this out, but just in general, you feel a lot better about the Yankee lineup versus a righty starter, right? For nothing out more than, Grisham is a completely different player against righties compared to lefties. It's not even close. And then you get Ben Rice in there too, right? That and the Jazz Chisholm Jr. part as well. So, in this lineup, no Jazz, no Rice, no McMahon, no Dominguez, which is not a surprise because he doesn't hit lefties. and he just doesn't start anymore, and no Escara. The only thing that in this lineup that I could have done differently. Now, again, like if Austin Slater showed any bit of ability as a Yankee, I could have lived with the idea of having Bellinger in center and Slater in left. Now, I know there's a defensive risk to that, but Slater was simply horrible. He was. And so based on what you had available to you, Grisham had to play in center. He ends up striking out all 4 times in this game. 3 versus Crochet, 1 versus Chapman. The one spot where I actually, and it's kind of funny that I'm saying this, and it didn't come back to bite them. It didn't. I would have maybe gone McMahon at third over Caballero for the simple fact that Fried gets a lot of ground balls to the left side. Like, what is Caballero really going to do anyway versus Crochet? He didn't really do anything. And, you just live with McMahon just doing what everyone else basically did. But again, like that is fine. And that didn't come back to bite them at all. So I'm not going to make a big deal about that whatsoever. But I don't know. Maybe now we kind of just start with the play-by-play of it all, because there's a lot of like bigger topics to discuss, but a lot of like in-game strategical maneuvers as well. So, let's start from the beginning here. And for the Red Sox, their lineup was Refsnyder at DH, Story, Bregman, Romy Gonzalez at first, Narvaez, Nate Eaton in right, Jaron Duran, the only lefty starter in the lineup, Cedane Rafaela, and then Nick Sogard at second base. So, good start for Fried. There was a 2-out single to Bregman, but that was it. Bottom of the first is where you have a big, big missed opportunity. Goldschmidt single, Judge single, and then Cody Bellinger strikes out. That's bad. That's really bad. And look, like obviously Crochet is going to make you look silly, but that's like Cody, he swings at a high pitch on strike 3. You can't do that. That ended momentum. And then Giancarlo Stanton, it's a double play. And so from a pitch count standpoint, and look, Stanton did hit the ball pretty hard. But Giancarlo Stanton, and this is not GOAT in the good way. This is not greatest of all time GOAT. This is GOAT in a bad way. Stanton was one of them today. But like he really, really was. And in some ways, it's unfair to say this, but Stanton in between has done amazing the postseason. But it was a little bit of a throwback for me thinking back to 2018. I was at the elimination game 4 game where I think he had some really brutal at-bats, one bad one versus Kimbrel. It wasn't like ugly for Stanton. Don't get me wrong. There were a couple of strikeouts, but he wasn't ugly. But he really fucked up big time. And again, first inning, I have more of a problem with Bellinger than Stanton, right? He hit the ball pretty hard, but that's tough. Against Crochet, you got to take advantage when those opportunities present itself, because they really didn't at all in this game. Bottom of the second, you get a 2-out homer for Anthony Volpe. Hey, give Anthony Volpe a lot of credit. Looked good defensively. Had a couple of hits off of Crochet, including the one Yankee run was an opposite field homer for Volpe. And Volpe was good in the postseason last year. Hey, I'm a sucker for that, right? As much as Volpe's regular season numbers have been bad, hey, he has delivered in big spots. So good on Anthony Volpe. Gives the Yankees a 1-0 lead. A 1-out single to Nick Sogard allowed by Fried in the third. And then after the Volpe home run, let's get the number right here. Crochet from there, let's see, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, 17 out in a row until Volpe gets a single off him in the 8th. 17 straight retired by Crochet. I mean, and what was frustrating was there were so many situations where we had 3-ball counts where the Yankees would unfortunately swing at ball 4, or just in general, Crochet would just, strike them out. It was tough. It was tough. And it was kind of, because at first I'm thinking, you know what? Through like, let's say through like 3 innings, I'm thinking, Crochet actually looks semi-hittable. And maybe 3 is not, maybe there's not an exact number here, but it's like, like as amazing as he is, like they don't look like they're that far off, but they were clearly. Top of the 4th is where you start to see some very frustrating 2-out rallies that fall short for the Red Sox. And not going to make a huge deal about the ump. The home plate ump in this game was Junior Valentine. But Carlos Narvaez should have been called out on strike 3 and was not, which then leads to Nate Eaton getting a double, a dunker into right. And then Fried does strike out Durant, so he gets out of it. However, due to the missed Narvaez call, Fried ends up throwing 11 extra pitches an inning. Not great. Not great at all. Um, Top of the fifth is another situation where the Red Sox, get a little bit of a two-out rally. Two-out walk Rob Refsnyder. An infield single for Trevor Story. But then luckily, Fried gets Bregman a ground out. So he's putting the zeros up, but the Red Sox are kind of doing what they need to do to try to get Fried out of the game as soon as they can. Sixth inning, one out for, again, the former Yankee Carlos Narvaez, and another missed call by Junior Valentine that ends up in a walk. Now, this ends up causing, all in all, needing to double play the next play. It ends up causing 9 extra pitches. You get about 20 extra pitches between those two innings. That's really big. And it's not fair to just put it on that point blank, but that is massive for what ends up happening. Top of the seventh, they bring Fried back out. His pitch count to start the inning was at 99 pitches, and he gets Sharon Durant a ground out. Great play by Goldschmidt and Fried on the connection there. And then they bring in Luke Weaver. This is where kind of the controversy begins. And you know what? In the moment, I acknowledge it was a tough call. I don't think you can look at this at all. It's not fair to say, hey, this was an obvious decision. It was not. It was not an obvious call, but it was close. I certainly don't think it was obvious to bring Weaver in, and I don't have a problem with people questioning the idea that they took Fried out. And what I didn't really totally grasp while I'm at the game is the idea that Ceddanne Rafaela had some pretty good career numbers off of Luke Weaver. It was like 2 homers. It might have been like 2 for 6 with 2 homers off of him, something like that. And so, you could have tried to go batter to batter with Fried still in there. I would have been fine with that. It could have, again, the Yankees are so particular about like the lanes and the 3-batter minimum that they really wanted to have Cruz or Williams to face Story, like the Story Bregman lane. And so it puts it in a situation where Weaver would go with the 8-9-1. That's what it was. And, again, like I wouldn't have had a crazy problem if Fried was kept in. And the Rafaela at bats against Fried, he flew out to Judge the first time, and then he grounded out to Rosario the second time. So he wasn't doing much against Fried. But what ends up happening is Weaver comes in. And as far as who was brought in, I think that given all the information we had, that was the guy to bring in there. Right? Williams at this point is the 8th inning guy, and you knew you had the righty lane coming up a little bit later there, and Bednar's in the 9th. So Weaver at that point was the one to bring in if you were going to take Fried out. And Luke Weaver last year was heroic, amazing for almost all of the postseason last year as the Yankee closer. Like he was sensational and really carried it into this year until things kind of hit the skids. Like he got hurt. It's been a rough second half for Weaver. It hasn't all been bad. There's been stretches where he's looked good, but it's been inconsistent. And really the at-bat of the game is Ceddanne Rafaela. And Ceddanne Rafaela is a guy that does not walk. He does not walk. And what does he do? He draws an 11-pitch walk against Luke Weaver after Weaver started him out 0-2. That simply cannot happen. It can't. And honestly, the full count, the ball 4 was not even close. Like Rafaela, if it was anywhere near the zone, he probably would have swung, but it wasn't close. So now he's on first with 1 out. And Nick Sogard, who already got a hit in this game, Nick Sogard actually is not as good as a lefty. He's a switch hitter, so you think, and Weaver's better against lefties. So okay, fine. Didn't work out versus Rafaela. Now Weaver might face some lefties, which he has more success against. What happens is Nick Sogard gets a hustle double to right center field. And this was due in large part to Aaron Judge's arm not being right. Judge throws in sort of a very soft, I think it was a 73-mile-per-hour throw into second, and Sogard beats it out for a double. That was huge. It's one thing for it to be first and third, 1 out. You still have the double play in order. Like, that's the lead run. He goes to second. Like, that cannot happen there, but that's the problem that you have right now with what Judge's situation is. So now it's second and third and 1 out. And the Red Sox, Alex Cora pinch hits Yoshida for Refsnyder. And the funny thing is this, he had Nathaniel Lowe as an option, Nathaniel Lowe had ridiculous numbers off Weaver. He was 6 for 8 with, like, I want to say 4 extra base hits out of those 6 hits. Like, it was straight domination, Nathaniel Lowe versus Luke Weaver. But as we've seen most often in Cora versus Boone, Cora pushes the right button, and Yoshida, who is more of a contact type of hitter, he doesn't really have a whole lot of power, he bangs a 2-run single to give the Red Sox a 2-1 lead. So again, the Sogard going to second ends up giving the Red Sox the lead. So I feel terrible for Max Fried. I mean, an unbelievable 6 1/3 scoreless innings work where he probably could have maybe pitched through the 7th inning if Boone had let him. And then the next night comes in Luke Weaver and does not record a single out. So right there, you know, the Yankees are in major, major, major trouble, given the fact that Crochet is still in there. You know, Whitlock and/or Chapman is looming. Not good at all. And that would prove to be true. So Fernando Cruz comes on and he's able to get out of it. Now, not to say it didn't get shaky. He does strike out Trevor Story. Bregman walks, and then Nathaniel Lowe, as a pinch hitter for Romy Gonzalez, lines out to right. And this ball was hit very hard, but luckily Judge makes the play. Bottom of the 7th was just a terrible, terrible inning by the Yankees, where Crochet at this point, if nothing else, if the Yankees worked together a decent 7th inning, you may not have seen Crochet in the 8th, which may have opened up some doors and possibilities and matchup options for the Yankees. However, between Cody Bellinger, Giancarlo Stanton, and Ahmed Rosario, it's a 6-pitch 7th inning for Garrett Crochet. Talk about a demoralizing 7th inning completely. Then here's what makes absolutely no fucking sense and what should be talked about more. Aaron Boone takes out Ahmed Rosario for Jazz Chisholm Jr. when they're losing. You're losing 2-1. Why do that there? It's one thing if you're leading. Then it's a totally different situation. Then it's like, hey, let's bring McMahon in. Let's get our best defensive unit in there for sure. But knowing that Aroldis Chapman was looming later on, why bring in Jazz Chisholm Jr. for Rosario? It doesn't make sense. And I got to be honest, I think part of it is like, look, Jazz clearly was upset after the game. You saw he was upset that he wasn't playing. I feel like Boone, and I hope I'm wrong about this. I hope that there was some strategical reason that I'm not aware of. But I hope that Boone didn't say, hey, like Jazz is, one of our best players. And just, it was Rosario got the last out of the 7. Let's just get Chaz in there. That would be wrong. But I can't think of any logical reason as to why they did that. And that comes back to bite them later on. So Devin Williams comes on in the 8th inning, leadoff walk to Narvaez, 4-pitch walk. And you're thinking, oh, great, here we go. Devin Williams can't handle the pressure. But then, hey, Devin Williams has been really good lately, gets the next 3 outs fairly easily. Bottom of the 8th rolls around, and of course, Crochet starts it. Trent Grisham strikes out. Again, I'll save the Grisham stuff maybe till the 9th. I mean, I already talked about it. Like, it's a damn shame that Trent Grisham bats for himself against lefties. Love what Trent Grisham has done this year. Really have. Like, one of the real, bright spots and surprises. But this guy doesn't hit lefties. And you have no fucking options. And that's where, again, whether it be Austin Slater or someone else, there was no righty somewhere along the line that could have been there in that situation. It would have been huge, and they don't have it. They do not have it. Give Anthony Volpe more credit. He gets the first base runner since his home run in the 2nd inning. It's a single for Anthony Volpe. So then Austin Wells is up, and Austin Wells strikes out looking. He worked a decent at bat, but then he strikes out looking. You're kind of just with Wells, like, based on, if there was a little more trust in Rice defensively in this situation, you could have started Rice. But I again, one of those frustrating things that based on the construction and composition of this team, Wells is pretty much going to be in there most nights. He just is. So now Aroldis Chapman comes in, which was really smart by Cora, because if they bring in Garrett Whitlock, okay, here comes Ben Rice. Now, or here comes Jason Dominguez or Ryan McMahon, but I don't know about that. Or what could have been Jazz Chisholm. Again, that's why bringing Chisholm there made no sense, because now you don't have Chisholm as a pinch run option, pinch hit option. But again, Cora was smart. Even though Caballero was up, he sticks with the lefties and goes to Chapman. Now, what happens is it's a disengagement violation on Chapman as he threw it over 3 times to try to get Volpe. Not smart by Chapman, clearly. And so the Yankees have an opportunity to maybe get an RBI single by Caballero, but unfortunately, he flies out. Not a bad at bat by Caballero. He hung in there, 6 pitch at bat, but he flies out. So the score remains 2-1. What ends up being huge is the top of the ninth. David Bednar does not get the job done. 2 easy outs to Sogard and Yoshida. But then Story singles with 2 out. Then Story still second on a close play at second. On a play that I wish that, and again, I think he would have been safe anyway, but I wish the Jazz had kept the tag down on him. But that's here nor there. And then once Story's still second, and I believe this was done when the count was 2-1, you got to pitch super carefully to Alex Bregman. I mean, Alex Bregman is the most dangerous player in this lineup. Yankee fans know this. Yankees know this. Alex Bregman gets an RBI double. That cannot happen there. You cannot let him beat you there. That's just dumb. So bad job by David Bednar. Bad job that they even faced him there. And it's 3-1 Red Sox. They pulled Bednar at that point, and Tim Hill gets Nathaniel Lowe to line out. So now we go to the ninth, down by 2 instead of 1. Paul Goldschmidt leadoff single against Chapman. Aaron Judge, give him credit, right? Because Judge has had a lot of postseason demons. He was not, look, that's a big hit against Chapman there to make it first and second no out. And then Cody Bellinger, it wasn't pretty. And boy, was his game. I was very upset about that first inning strikeout. Cody Bellinger is able to dunk in a hit in the left center field. So now it's bases loaded, no out. Boy, do you wish you were down 2-1. And here it is. The at-bat of the game for me. Now, obviously, like from a Yankee standpoint, it's right here. It's Giancarlo Stanton, who has obviously been Mr. Clutch in the postseason ever since after 2018. Or I guess more ever since 2020. And, boy, could this have been a fucking special moment. Like, right, what if he hits a grand slam? What if he gets an extra base hit? What if they walk this off? But the Red Sox gotten the better of the Yankees in these situations. That's the sad truth. They just have. And whether it be at Fenway or at Yankee Stadium, like, we just have not seen that special playoff moment like that. Now, not to say that there haven't been some good ones, but in terms of just late game magic type stuff, it's crazy. The only one that really rings a bell was against the Astros in 2017, where that 8th inning where they came back and Gary Sanchez had that big double, I think, into right center field. Like, just has not been many special moments like that at all. And Giancarlo Stanton unfortunately strikes out. And the first pitch was the key. It's a foul that goes off Stanton's bat. It was a ball. And I guess he just couldn't get out of the way of it. He wasn't really trying to swing. And then boom, like once he went down 0-2, you knew it was done and he strikes out. And to me, that's the game. And you want to know why? Because coming on deck is Chisholm and Grisham against Chapman. What the fuck do you think is going to happen? And that's where Rosario should have still been in there. Why? I bet Rosario is batting in his career 3 for 7 with 2 homers off of Chapman. I'm not saying Rosario comes through. And hey, Rosario did not really do anything offensively in this game either. And also, to be somewhat fair, it's not as if Jazz struck out, but he was down 0-2 in the count, and it was an outside pitch that he pulled for what would have likely been a sac fly. If the Yankees were down 1, let's say, and like Dominguez was on third instead of Goldschmidt, very, very good chance that's a good enough for a sac fly, or at least an attempt to do it. So that's where the Yankees not scoring that. It's a little misleading. It didn't make sense to send Goldschmidt in that situation. Just didn't. And now it's Trent Grisham. And look, could you have pinch hit Ben Rice, who's also lefty, for Grisham? Yes, you could have. Like, I would have had no problem if they wanted to do that, but they stuck with Grisham, and Grisham strikes out. Chapman gets out of the jam. It's Grisham's 4th strikeout of the game, and the Red Sox win 3-1. A amazingly crushing, frustrating game for the Yankees. One that would have been huge to win, to somehow beat Crochet, even if it's not because of you actually hitting Crochet, but just coming out of there with the win would have been massive. But the Red Sox get the key win. And now the Yankees will be facing elimination. It's going to be Brian Bayo against Carlos Rodon. It'd be a damn shame to lose both games at home to the Red Sox. I'll tell you that much. Again, my prediction, and I didn't really give you a game 1 and game 2 prediction. I kind of talked around it a little bit, but I said, hey, I think that it's going to be a split in the first 2 games, and I felt like the Yankees would win game 3. It could still happen, right? Like that prediction could still be in play. And the logical guess is that they would lose the Crochet one between the first 2. But hey, Brian Bayo has done well against the Yankees. He should be a lot easier than Crochet, I'll tell you that much. And I think the Yankee lineup will be a better one. And you hope that Rodon can step up to the, to the plate here. Look, it's been a mixed bag for Rodon in some big spots. This year was more good than bad, but I'm really curious to see how he does in an elimination game. Is he able to give you anywhere near what Fried did? It'd be great. And at that point, hey, then it's one game at home. So as bad as it feels right now, it can turn around pretty quickly, but man, what a missed chance. And again, it comes down to the Yankees could not hit Garrett Crochet. Luke Weaver was bad. Big run allowed by Bednar on the ninth, and then Chapman is able to escape out of the jam. And that stand at bat, that was the only chance because of that you had two lefties and Chisholm and Grisham that just weren't going to get it done versus Chapman. So there you have it. Yankees lose game 1 of this best-of-3 series by a score of 3-1 at Yankee Stadium. And now they will face an elimination game right away here in the postseason. It'll be Brian Bale versus Carlos Rodon as the Yankees will look to save their season.